Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome to Who Am I? Who am I? We treat that question like we know what the answer is. Like it's a given. We know what that answer is. We don't need to ask that question. That's not true. We don't know who we are, and we have not made our way to sustainability yet. And sustainability means not going extinct. If we can't find a way to be in this world, we're not gonna make it to the next century. And I don't know how you feel about this, but 8 billion people going extinct is not going to be a pretty sight. However, this show is not about gloom and doom because absolutely we have at our disposal the most amazing setup. So what is my show even? What is my show? Let's talk about that for a minute before we just jump right in and start tearing the universe apart. Who am I? And the reference is source energy. Who am I as source energy? Who am I as reality coming into being? Who am I as an eternal continuum? All kinds of big questions. But we're not just asking them philosophically. That's been done for thousands of years. We're doing it with a very specific set of intentions for this exercise. I believe that when we generally understand some general, not even particularly controversial configurations of our cosmic and specific physical anatomy, we just understood just a couple of things, then everybody could be released back into the wild with this information and they could blend with one another way better. In other words, the achievement of peace on earth and how to set up the formula so that we can negotiate amongst ourselves and come to a peaceful place where where everybody's needs are met. Sounds like a pie in the sky kind of an idea. But I think the system is set up to give everybody what they want. They just have to get into a clear place of wanting, clear place of knowing what you want. Not because people are in all kinds of not clear places. I want this, but I want that, and they're diametrically opposed. I want him, but I don't want him. Or I want this, but I don't want that. Or I want this, but I can't have it, so I'm going to go for this other thing, which I really don't want. We've got our heads into the game, and it's screwing the situation up. It's messing with the clarity of the signals. And all we have to do is just understand these signals and understand what's trying to organize us and how to lean into it in faith and trust. Faith because you know it's all right and you know what it is and you know how it works, and so you just have faith in the process. Anyway, that's the first intention, peace on earth. The second one is we need to get off fossil fuels. They are burning up the planet. We're turning it into a cinder. Now you look around and you go, oh, the world looks pretty. It looks alive. Look how alive and wonderful it is. It is alive, and there's nothing wrong with the world. The world is not broken. The problem is with us. And we're not exactly broken either, but we don't know who we are. And in our not knowing who we are, we act like something else. We don't know that we actually are a part of the ecosystem. We are part of the biofield threads of cooperating systems of um, abundance, whatever you want to call it. We are part of the ecosystem. And if we would lean into the frequencies, tune into the frequency of source, and then just follow the impulses that come from that. Well, how do you plug into source? Well, what you do, you are plugged into source unless you have gotten yourself into a situation where your mind has taken you away from source through negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are not us. They aren't us. That's it. It's something else. It's hard to describe what it is because, um, and what I mean by it is us, because obviously it is us too, and words. So how is this going to get us off fossil fuel? Well, we need to understand what the paradigm of our physical universe actually is. Now, on the one hand, on a really ordinary note, the fact is that plain old over unity devices, just simple over unity devices, are possible, and our civilization is telling us that they are not. And I think one of the reasons that they're telling us that they are not is because the infrastructure of the current paradigm is so invested in the fossil fuel burning paradigm that it just can't allow us to. It's got all kinds of feelers everywhere, nipping it, snipping it, knocking it down. We've come to believe that over unity devices aren't possible. But the reason that they're possible is this. Well, first of all, the reason that you think that they're not possible is this. In a closed system, you cannot produce more energy than is there, or than you put into the system, or however they are looking at that. And so it looks like an over unity device is just creating energy out of nothing. But that is not at all what is happening. First of all, there is no place where there is nothing. And there is no place where there isn't already so much energy there that you couldn't possibly, that little bit of over unity is, it's not over unity. The energy is everywhere, and there is no such thing as a closed system. So a device that that taps into the energy field in some way and generates work on the other side of it as energy it's not an impossible thing. We have been taught that it's an impossible thing, but we have been duped. And I can prove it, or to my sense, it's proving it, through the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. Go watch that movie. It's talking about the history of these devices that have been brutally suppressed by our own government, which is completely in bed, and of course it would be, because this is how our systems line up. It is a natural thing for all parts of our systems to line up with themselves. So the fact that our government is in full blown cooperation with our economic system is not actually a sinister thing, but it is something we could have seen coming. So no matter how much you want church and state to be separate, no matter how much you want state and economics to run independently of one another, they aren't going to work out that way. We will pull into a closed system We just will. As human beings, it's what we do. And so the answer to this problem is we need to get into alignment with who we are. And then when all of our systems conglomerate with one another, you know, we won't be crosswise of ourselves. We need to get into alignment with ourselves, with Source, actually. And then Source will line us up. And we just hold on to the frequency of Source, and Source will sort it out. And what Source actually is, it's so many things that there's something for everybody. It is universal consciousness, and so there is a consciousness behind it all that is this loving, all-knowing God consciousness thing. So the people out there who are all about God, they are satisfied. But it does it on a really kind of, what's the right adjective for this? There's an abstract concept behind this also, that it's a mechanism that you can observe and work with. And so the people who are not so into that personal God connection can know that it's actually a matter-of-fact kind of thing that's happening. We are all tethered to one another in a way. This is almost a philosophical point, but I think that I'm actually trying to describe ultimately a physical, literal reality. We are all tethered to a single point. We're all joined from a single original spin. And from that spin, consciousness can sort out, universal consciousness can sort out what everybody's doing, how they're moving, their speed, their velocity, their direction, their temperature, everything is connected through a single point. And we're going to talk about that later. Right now, that just sounds like nonsense, but I promise you, I think there's a place where philosophy meets science, where the places in your imagination that just kind of let the picture float a bit meet the one who's looking at an actual reality. How does actual reality come into being? How does your reality come into being? How are your thoughts turning themselves into things around you? Because they are. You may be looking so far afield that you have no sense of this connection between the momentum of your thinking and how it walks you into different experiences. This experience instead of that experience, because you were on this frequency thinking about these things instead of that frequency thinking about those things. And then when you get a handle on it, you're like, oh, this is up to me. And ultimately, there's no judgment. The universe is kind of a neutral place. But when you plug into it and then feel your feelings, you know that even though I just said it's a neutral place, and I stand by that in a way, you plug into it and you know that it is not a neutral place. It is so filled with love and meaning and value and power and truth and magnificence, beauty. It's not neutral, but you've got to plug into it, and then it comes alive. And actually, it turns out it isn't neutral. It was never neutral, because all life is doing that, and all life gives it meaning, and that spin connects us all. So, when you get into alignment with yourself, Abraham will tell you it's all about timing. Your timing starts flowing with yourself. You know, it's like if you're out of sync, if you are out of alignment, say you're deep in negative emotion, you've spent a life in pain and unhappiness, and maybe you're in pain and unhappiness right now, which means that you are not in touch with the inner part of you, that who you really are. And since you are not in touch with who you really are, no wonder you are in pain. But you're turning it outwards, saying it's these conditions out here that are doing it. But that's not what's doing it. What's doing it is you're not in touch with yourself, and then you're pinging off timing impulses, and you're rendezvousing with the world in a really chaotic way. Things are not lining up for you. You're not getting the things that you want, the relationship, the job, you're just missing the train. You're just, your inner being knows how everything is spinning around you and knows exactly how to rendezvous you with exactly what you like. What you like, what you want, what would be fun, what other people would like and would be fun. Your inner being knows how to do that with you. You just have to follow her. Well, she's actually giving a pretty general signal. So the specifics are up to you. You just need to find the right general signal and then follow the impulses that Source gives you from that position on the grid. From that position and that alignment, just start taking the impulses. You have an impulse to eat this, or to open that door, or to drive, to stop at that, store, or to, whatever. You start following the impulses from the general frequencies of Source, and your life will turn out better. Don't follow impulses from the frequencies of your negative self. Your negative self is not you. And if you are in your negative self, then the first and only job is to get out of your negative self and find your positive self. If back in 1930 something or other, somebody had given Hitler some help, he wouldn't have driven the world into a ditch. But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. And I think humanity, honestly, needed to see that was possible. We needed to see how big we are. And we needed to see how deep the abyss goes, so that we stay the frick away from it. That is what happens when we follow negative momentum. So it's like millions of people bought into an us and them paradigm. Let's just talk about the German people because they were actually the ones who aggressively went out and started that whole thing. And they did it because Hitler had a philosophy that he thought that it was absolutely mandatory. It was necessary. If a people was going to thrive, he thought, they had to be engaged in conflict. Well, that right there, if you got that as one of your primary, what do I call those? My primary assumptions, it's up at the top of your iOS, you must be in conflict with your neighbors or you will not thrive. Well, that was a recipe for disaster right there. That sort of mandated that whole thing was going to unravel the way that it did, because that is not the case. We do not live. I watched a show once. It was really interesting how it in general showed three large philosophies that played out on the human stage through World Wars I and II. And they were all in their own way playing out a Darwinian sort of survival of the fittest kind of philosophy, each one of them doing it from a different angle, and but each one of them believing the idea of the kill or be killed, the survival of the fittest. You have to, we are all in conflict with one another, and so the he who what is it? He who something wins. Anyway, the three philosophies that did that were communism, fascism, and capitalism, and each one of them did this in their own way. And in their own way, they were believing this Darwinian paradigm of survival of the fittest. But that's not, we aren't in conflict, or we shouldn't be, we don't have to be. Those at the bottom compete, those at the top collaborate, cooperate, and actually that's what ends up happening. Also, the fascists are all cooperating with one another. What I'm saying is the businesses are cooperating with the government, and that seems like a sinister thing in our current society. Excuse me. I guess I should push my cough button. The only reason that it's sinister, government and business in bed with one another, is because we are not in alignment. If we were in alignment, if each of us individually had been in alignment as those businesses were conceived of, as the government was cobbled together, it would be different. But we weren't in alignment, and our systems are still not in alignment. So what's the answer? Well, it isn't a top-down, let's get to work and let's fix this thing. It's not like that. It's much more gentle than that. And so this project is actually going to take a long time. It's not going to be the kind of thing where I can just call the troops into motion and we all get to work and fix it. We could, but it wouldn't look like us all doing the same thing. It would look like all of us doing different things, because that's how it's going to fix itself. Each one of us individually has to plug ourselves into source. And from that position, then follow the inspiration of what to do about the problem. The problem is alignment. It's not anything else. The system works perfectly. It's absolutely perfection. And that's an interesting concept right there. There are so many people out there trying to heal the world because they see things that appear to be broken. They see things out of alignment and they look like they're not working, and so they think that they need to heal a broken world. But the very instant that you turn towards the world with that frequency of, oh, poor broken world, I need to fix you, you disconnect from your source, because source doesn't think that. Source knows that all is well, that nothing's wrong with the world. And so where does that leave us? It means we've got to understand how it works, pick ourselves up, and in good cheer and absolute faith and optimism, move forward. And move forward and proceed to set the world back into alignment. It's actually a very, it's almost a, it's almost an insignificant detail, but it isn't an insignificant detail because it's all in the frequency that you are engaged in. It's all about that, If you are coming at any situation from a negative emotion, you are not, you are in either light misalignment or deep misalignment with what your source self knows to be about the situation. So what does this all mean? It means, well, let's go back to the beginning of the show. Who am I? Who am I? That's the question we ask. Who am I? Oh, I'm so sorry. I dropped my microphone. I hope that everything is still recording well. That was a big old boom. We ask the question, who am I? And the reference is source energy, and the reason that we ask it is not for philosophical reasons, although we can wax philosophical, and often do, which might confuse the situation. But the reason really that we ask this is we want our world to change. Well, I want the world to change. The world is changing, and I would like it to change. I would like to help guide the forces of change in an aligned direction. I don't want us, in our misunderstanding of the situation or ourselves, to get in there with a heavy hand and make another big old boo-boo this century. I don't want to do that. I don't want to live through that because I have come to enjoy being comfortable. I like being comfortable. I don't want my power to go out and have me not be able to get back on the power. And then I'm stuck in a place of not climate control, and my food situation gets dicier because, I need to prepare food and my power systems are down. I would like human beings to live in a paradigm of more energy security than we've got. I don't like what I see, and I don't believe it's necessary. I think the paradigm of the systems that we've got going on right now is a consequence of just, we're playing out the fossil fuel thing, and the rest of us, the general population of us, wasn't thinking about this, assuming that those who were in charge of energy, they've got it covered. But, every one of us is capable of taking the broader position of peeping up above the clouds and looking down at our situation and seeing for ourselves what the situation is on the ground from above. One of the reasons, so this particular viewpoint, this is why I throw the movie Living in the Future's Past in my playlist. So here's my playlist, my links list. That this is a list of embedded my playlist that I want you to watch. Because this is part of the information I'm putting together. Now, I also refer to Abraham all the time, and I don't have an Abraham in here. Maybe I should. Maybe I should find the quintessential steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where she describes the steps of creation. We are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe and all of that. Well, I'm pulling up this links list because I'm pointing to Living in the Future's Past. That one there. It's narrated by Jeff Bridges. Actually quite good. But it talks about us as a superorganism, and we are a superorganism, and we have an aspect of our consciousness which is capable of seeing ourselves as a superorganism. You're pulling ourselves out to the general and going, oh, I can see my context, and then telescoping back into the specific, into your own spot on the grid, and now make choices in your own specific, or dial back to the broader perspective and see, oh yeah, we are a superorganism. And I'll tell you what, the problem with our superorganism right at the moment has to do with our energy source. The source of our energy right now, what's fueling our civilization, is fossil fuels and variations and iterations thereof. Even things like wind and solar and geothermal, those are all just little incremental, blips of things that sort of help us in a way not be utterly dependent on fossil fuels. But even they use quite a lot of fossil fuels. They use quite a lot of petroleum to fabricate the parts as well as get it up and running. There's a lot of fossil fuels still in all of those, including nuclear energy. And not only that, each and every one of those is still depending upon a grid of wires and distribution that way. And we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that anymore. And I don't know how long some of these people have known that. They might see the future, and they might know that fossil fuels aren't going to be necessary at all pretty soon. As soon as we figure it out, that's how long it'll take. And so that's really part of what this show is in service to, from my side of it. Because I want to see my people find their way to energy security. I want to be able to go into any winter or any summer and know that I'm still going to be connected to the internet, and I'm still going to be connected to climate control, and I'm still going to be connected to an ability to prepare food and pump water and all of those things, as well as be able to play my games. And we are a wonderful, wonderful species. And to see the number of human beings on Earth at any given moment these days playing is such a heartening view. There are more people playing golf or cruising the sea or watching cat videos, or they're having way more fun than they have ever had in all of human time. If you look back a century before all of that ugliness played out, right before and through the First and Second World War eras, that is that ugly time that I'm talking about. The First and Second World Wars. We should never have another world war. I actually don't think we will, because I think we've gotten to a point in consciousness through the last century of all of the things that we have been through. And all of the things that our consciousness has gone through in the last 100 years. I don't think that you will find universal participation in a world war in quite the same way that we did. We threw ourselves into it enthusiastically 100 years ago. I don't think we're going to do that again. Because, well, I'm not going to, and I don't care what my neighbor does. I know that the broader perspective, actual bird's eye view of the situation is that we are all one. We are one morphogenetic field upon the planet, and we need to get into alignment with our source, and then source will align us with one another in the most productive, playful, happiness creating, beauty creating, abundance creating manner possible. Source is the only one who can organize us in the way we need to be organized. And you don't do it from the outside. You don't impose it on anyone else from the outside. It has to be voluntary. It's against the rules to force others. You can't force, you must coerce. You must get them to go along. So it's just like with the vaccine question and how the slippery slopes going on all over the place there. So I'm not going to say that I don't think that vaccines are valid. There is a valid idea behind the technology of vaccines, absolutely. And we have a certain amount of capability of creating beneficial vaccines to the benefit of humanity. And insofar as ever our intentions are pure, then what we come up with will be good. But sometimes our intentions are not pure. And if while at the same time somebody wanted to create a vaccine that helps humanity, at the same time they wanted to make lots of money, and they were afraid of not having money, and so it was really important that they make money, so that you got this fear factor moving into the intention. It's not pure anymore, and it's possible that on the other side of this, the vaccine might not be as good because of that. Well, actually, I was talking about force and free will and getting people to comply voluntarily. So say if our government comes up with a bunch of vaccines or a vaccine, and they say everybody needs to take this for our good. That may very well be true. But they have to convince everybody. They are not allowed to force everybody. I truly believe you can't live in a paradigm where your government is allowed to force you to do anything. Ever. And the consequences to reality be damned. And I almost understand the gun people now, although I really want less guns on. I think so many more guns than we need being around is almost it is a statement of misalignment. But the answer is you got to get people to give them up voluntarily. You can't force their guns out of their hands. You can't force them to take a vaccine. You can't force them to give up their guns. You cannot force. You have to convince. And if you have the truth and the right and the clarity and the alignment on your side, it's not hard to convince. And when you can't convince people, it kind of makes me wonder whether you've got alignment on your side, and I think that we are not in alignment. Now, the answer is you don't force alignment to the group from the top down. You cannot force us into... everyone has to authentically be themselves from their position on the grid. It's almost divinely mandated so. That's the answer. And so the answer is each individual has to find their own individual way to their own alignment with Source. And we're going to talk about what that means in a practical way in just a minute. I'm not really talking about it just philosophically or religiously or anything like that. There's a specific thing we're talking about. We are talking about frequencies. We're talking about, because if you want to understand the world, you need to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, because it is a vibrational world. It is a vibrational universe, and you are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe. An eternal vibrating being, a continuum of desire and intention throughout eternity. You are, and you are connected to Source. You are Source energy. You are an extension. We are all Source energy. So anyway, quick, my links list, Lost Century, please watch that. Origin of Mass, Nature of Gravity, that's the 12-episode series over on Gaia that describes, in layman's terms, I mean, he kind of shows you the math, but you don't have to really be a mathematician to understand the picture, the shape, the structure that he's telling you about the fullness of space and the spinning space. It's all spin. It's all spinning. Spin is the motion. Spin is the motion. Spin is the motion going on planet Earth right now. Every one of us is spinning. And we're all spinning at a slightly different rate relative to one another. That's how come, things spin into your experience and then they go off. They spin off. But it is all spin. And space is full. It's not empty. And It's all black holes all the way up and all the way down, and how the Plancks and the universes relate to one another mathematically, how the protons and the Plancks and the universes relate to one another mathematically. That's going to get us to the big kahuna, the big prize. The big prize, which is us understanding source energy and our civilization being fully plugged in to source energy. But in the meantime, we don't have to just sit here and go, oh, someday. And in the meantime, we keep amping up our current infrastructure. Build more pipelines, build more refineries, drill more, drill baby, drill in the Gulf, drill in the Arctic. We have to fuel it now. That source energy, that's pie in the sky. That's who even knows what that means. Let's do more of this infrastructure now. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop it. What's going to happen is the source is going to stop it for us. If we do it intentionally and wisely and in alignment, we can move away from fossil fuels more gently. It doesn't have to be so jarring. But if we persist in engaging in things that are literally unsustainable, life has a real harsh way of getting us to quit doing those things, all the way up until it will get us fighting with one another until we've destroyed everything around us. And then as we look around and we're forced to rebuild, then new ideas come in and are there with the rebuilding. But we don't have to get all the way to destruction if we would understand who we are. I've got a great idea, as a matter of fact. I don't know if I've ever said this on my show. If you're my couple of fans I got or whatever, I may have one fan and then others that drop in. I'm not sure who's listening, but every day somebody listens. Yesterday, I got 4 listeners. The other day, I got 23. I don't know who these people are. Every day, there's at least one. But here's my great idea. This is an idea of how we could start solving our problems incrementally without really much of anything different happening. No great things have to fall out of the sky. No war has to shift the order of anything around. Our government just needs to allow us to do this. And if enough of us understood the situation and campaigned for this, rallied with it, went with it, maybe they would have to let us. Right now, we are being suppressed. Our paradigm that we are living is a manufactured one. It's not real. It's not natural. It has not been allowed to just be what it is. This fossil fuel burning paradigm that we're in at the moment has been guided. We've been guided to it. And we could move away from it. We could start adding energy sources real easily. These over unity devices, this is my great idea. So call a national, I may have said this before. This is going to be part of my thing. So I'm going to say this again and again and again. I think this is a great idea. Call for a national contest for over unity devices. Break the news. These are possible, people. And our government has been suppressing them for 100 years in the name of our national security. Well, I think our national security is being greatly challenged at the moment because of our use of fossil fuels, because of our dependence and vulnerability of the grid, dependence on and vulnerability of the grid, the way that our energy is transferred amongst ourselves with wires, and our present energy security and our present energy vulnerability is very high. That means bad national security. Now, you could just hire more military and put guards around all of the precious infrastructure of energy that we've got. But that's not going to give us energy security. I'll tell you what's going to give us energy security. Two things. Us understanding over unity and plugging directly into source energy. Those are the two ways. Now, if you watch the movie The Lost Century, that's the first thing up on the list. If you watch that, you will see that all these devices that our patent office has been, like disallowing and deep sixing and, making go away, they have not necessarily been tapping directly into source energy. They're just great ideas. There's all kinds of ways that you can produce more energy than the device that you have designed takes to run it. There's lots of ways to do it. There's one dude in Africa, and this is in the Thrive 2 movie, not in the Lost Century. And I don't know whether the Thrive 2 movie is now available on YouTube. It's got a lot of flaws in that movie. There's some truths. There's some good truths to that. But I wouldn't necessarily move in the direction that they did. You got to be careful when you start looking at the culprits, because I do not think for a second that we should spend any time chasing culprits. It will eat into the time that we really, really, really need to focus on getting ourselves out of the problem that we're in right now. And it kind of detracts from the general message, which is there's only one of us here, and there is no us and them, and only human beings did it, and we need to heal humanity and raise all of us up to a higher frequency so that we all understand who we are, so that we cooperate better with one another, so that we integrate better with one another. So ultimately, when we build our final systems, they are in alignment with who we really are, with the biofield around us, with each other, all of that. But we don't do that from outside in, we do that from inside out. It's an inside job. All of the players have to learn who they are as source and line up with your source and go be your source. So, Lost Century and how to reclaim it. Oh, my great idea is call a national contest for over Unity devices. Have a campaign, first of all, breaking the news that over Unity devices are possible. That these things are possible, but the patent office is not going to be offering patents for these devices and then disallowing others from being able to use these devices also, to use your design. As the patent office is not going to be involved in this anymore because they cannot be trusted. And besides that, I don't think we want patents. I think we want lots and lots of these devices everywhere, and anybody can use them. And it will inject so much energy into our economy, into our society, into our dreams and hopes and our abilities to move towards the future that we're really looking for. The one we're really looking for. Not this half-assed one that we seem to only be able to conceive of springing directly out of whatever the problems we got going on the ground right now. We need to really get where we need to go. And that involves full energy security, driving the civilization of humanity into the 21st century and beyond, 22nd century. Are we going to make it to the 22nd century? We got 75 years to get there. Are we going to make it? Well, I think we can if we have a clean, free energy source. But as long as we are fueling our society with an energy source that we have to, a dirty, filthy energy source that we have to dig out of sacred ground. Actually, I don't want to use the word sacred there. We have to dig out of the ground, put into pipelines and pipe it across sacred aquifers, irreplaceable sacred aquifers of life, of blessed sacred life. down to refineries and then put it onto barges and send it across heaving seas, we're not going to get into no 22nd century fueling our society this way. We just won't. And all of our looking around at reality is going to keep telling us, oh, but we have to, but we have to, but we have to, but we can't, but we can't, but we can't. It is not sustainable. And Gaia, Mother Nature, the Almighty, has a way of telling you in no uncertain terms that things are not sustainable, kicking you off of them because they cannot be sustained. The Almighty has kind of a, when you don't do it consciously and intentionally yourself, when He kicks you off the unsustainable, it can be quite rough. I don't want to go that way. I want to see the writing on the wall. I want to see that we need to pull our systems into alignment with ourselves, with who we really are as source energy, as mankind upon the planet. Identify with the love aspect of this. Identify with the light. Know who you really are and live out of that. Swear allegiance to that first. And don't even pay any attention to what everybody tells you is real until and unless you find happy or productive or positive ways in any way to interact with it. If you can only interact with it with your negative mind, go take a nap. Go take 10 naps. Go do whatever it takes. You are not your negative self. We are not our negative selves, don't you know? And when we think that we are, when we think that the conditions are primary, and therefore it is justified that I hang on to this negative self because it is locked onto a staring down that negative thing that I hate so badly, and now I act from that position, don't you know that every step you take from that position is only making more chaos and confusion? You are not aligning, you are not cohering, you are chaotic. Anyway, so let me finish with this list because it's really a very boring slide and it's still up. Let's see. Origin of mass, nature, gravity, quantum revolution. The origin of mass, nature, of gravity, that's the paper. If you want to look at the paper that has the mathematics on it, that is explaining how matter is coming into being, how it does it, as these Plancks come into spin through the gradient density, so what do I mean by gradient density? In the field, in the quantum field, you have one density over here and a different density over here. That's gradient density. Different densities. The biggest gradient density is the difference between the quantum world and the cosmological world. There's a huge gradient density in the field. If you go if you're looking at the scale from small to large, there is a huge gradient density, enough to send the whole field into magnificent spinning motion, which is exactly what it's doing. Magnificent spinning motion. And if you look at the greater world, look out into the cosmos, and you see these everything is spinning. It is all spin. Spin is the name of the game. And I got a slide to show you that in a minute, but I'm not going to get off of this. The Connected Universe, that was the first movie that was made about this. 2016, Patrick Stewart narrates it. It's great. Go watch it. Then Living in the Future's Past, that's why I brought this up in the first place, because it shows that it just talks about us as a superorganism. Don't kid yourself. Humanity is a superorganism, and you are a cell in that superorganism. The only way that you are potentially a separate organism from that, and only part of the biofield superorganism, which is also a superorganism on planet Gaia, Thank you very much. The only way is if you're still an indigenous people somewhere deep in the heart of something where you are absolutely not on the human supply chain of information, communications, energy, food resources, or any of that, if you are not on the human supply chain in any way, and I'm not sure if there's anybody out there who isn't anymore. Have they handed, iPads to the Shipibo? I know that I have seen Maasai and Samburu with tablets in their hands looking at the internet. I know that I have seen that. So is there anybody anymore that is not part of the body of mankind? And even if you are off on your own and not tagged into the supply chain, still in consciousness, I believe humanity is still one being on this planet. And I also think that we're genetically modified. I think that the reason that we have a hard time... Now, you may say, what do you mean have a hard time? Human beings are so successful. I could talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and never stop talking about all the wonderful things that we have done, that we have created, that we have invented, that we have... On and on and on and on. I would never run out. I would die before I ran out of things to say about that. And I'm not arguing about that. But as a superorganism, our extended future is a question still. And what it hangs on is upon whether or not we can get into alignment. Whether we can pull ourselves together and understand that we are a superorganism. And each one of us is a cell in this superorganism. Now, it is absolutely possible for everyone somehow to line up with Source and get what you want. Move in the direction of wanted, and us all organize in a way that it is absolutely possible. But the only way we're going to do it, we're not going to do it from the outside. Nobody's going to say, okay, this is the way we're lining up, people. Pay attention. Everybody has to do this. Everybody has to understand. Everybody has to fall in line. It's not going to be like that. When you do it that way, it looks like Nazi Germany. It looks like North Korea. It looks like lockstep and groupthink. It looks like communist Russia. It looks like you don't want lockstep and groupthink. What you want is you want everybody in the group to understand who they are and how to plug their own mechanism into their own source plug into source energy, and then see what ideas you get. See how your feelings line out. See what drops into your head as a great idea. See what thoughts come to you. See what inspirations you have to rendezvous with whom, to what end. That it's going to be glorious. But we need to understand, I think we need to consciously understand this. Because just to leave it up to, everybody individually to just kind of figure it out on their own has led to a cacophony of competing and conflicting religions about it. And I completely understand the religions, and I don't even disavow them. As a matter of fact, every time I see another church go up and that's got another crazy name, it's the church of the this and that and the other thing, the life, spirit, unification, church of the Baptist ministry, or whatever. I smile to myself because I say, you know what? It's not going away. It's not going to go away because there is this divine force that is trying to organize us. And it is trying to organize us along spirits, along spirit lines, along frequencies. What are these frequencies? Well, they are frequencies, turn out to be frequencies of peace, peace first. There's a reason why Jesus Christ was the Prince of Peace. He was all about achieve this frequency of peace first. And then look what happens. Look what happens to your impulses. Look what happens to your consciousness. Look what happens to your actions, your kindness, the way that you interact with the rest of the world, the power that you have, the ability that you have now to affect the actual physical world. And you only came at it from a spiritual position. Now, what? You can walk on water, you can calm seas, you can change a water to wine, you can bring back the recently dead back into the living. Now, whether you believe all that stuff or not, that's why it would be so. Because those who are in alignment are more powerful than millions who are not. And if Jesus had any power, his power came from his alignment with his inner being, with his physical mind not obstructing in any way. It flowed with and through and cooperated. It was a cooperative component to his spirit self, who he deferred to at all times. And I would suggest that we all start doing that. Spirit first, and then we get together and talk about stuff. It's the purpose of a timeout, like when you're right in the middle of fighting with somebody and they're like, time out. It's because from the frequency of the fighting, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to go find that frequency of alignment, which is a frequency of peace, of spirit first. So here's my little picture. This represents to me your source self and your physical self. Your source mind specifically, and your physical mind specifically. So let's talk about mind. What is your mind? Your mind is this place where you go and you have thoughts. Your mind has thoughts. Your physical mind is capable of thinking thoughts. And depending on what spirit you are in, what frequency you are in, you know this by your emotional guidance scale, which will tell you what frequency you are in. The frequency you're in is a relative. It has to do with. Okay. Let's go back to this picture. I do this every day. You'd wonder why I have a hard time coming up with it on any given day, because every day I come in and I say the same damn thing. But it's true. We need to know who we are. If we knew who we were, in every case, we would fix every problem that we've got. And even the big problems, they can all be fixed with enough free, clean energy that anybody can wield. So we're going to be able to recycle Garbage Island in the Pacific. The big garbage, horrible place that, that we've... Anyway, we're going to be able to recycle Garbage Island. We can desalinate as much seawater as we could possibly... As we can... We could probably build big desalination plants that are powered by this new way of powered by source energy, and you just have this big. We can create rivers that flow through the desert, that flow from the sea into the desert. Oh, I got all kinds of grand ideas. Really cool things that we could do. We can resequester carbon. So any of this carbon that we've been putting out into the planet, into the atmosphere from our cows and everything, methane gas, and there are methane pools or pockets in the Arctic, in the frozen lands, that when we warm up enough, they're going to be released. Well, we can probably start resequestering all that kind of stuff. We need power, though. We need energy to do this. And we need sustainable energy that individuals can use in their home systems so that they can weather storms, so that the power grid doesn't come down every time a hurricane blows through. You can bunker in, and your power stays up. You stay connected to the rest of the group. You still maintain your climate control and your ability to cook food and all that stuff. We got to do this, people. Our better understanding of who we are is going to bring us the 22nd century. And we can start moving to the 22nd century now. We're not even out of the 20th century yet. We call ourselves the 21st century. In a lot of ways, we're not out of the 19th yet. The 19th century was the century to use fossil fuels. The 20th century should have been the century that we incrementally got off of them. But we didn't. We didn't. So now here we are. Here we are. And the situation on the ground is what it is. And we have an absolute mammoth momentum of infrastructure all bent to the fossil fuel direction. I don't know what to do about that, except from where I am, just try to raise consciousness, you know? I think that they didn't think that we could be trusted with free, clean energy, because look at what we still do with one another. We still make war on one another. We don't understand that there's only one of us here. They don't understand that there is no us and them. Us and them, us and theming will get you in deep doo-doo. Because that's actually what the German people did. It's what the whole world did for World Wars I and II. The us and theming that we all agreed to is what caused that whole incredible display of violence, of worldwide, all-out, total violence to erupt. That was all of us buying into the us and them paradigm. Well, I'm not buying into it anymore. I see my fellow human beings who are violent or that I disagree with or that I think are wrong about their view of the world or how they've got their primary assumptions set in at the top, what they think the object of the exercise is or whatever. I think it's out of alignment. I don't think that you have to be in perpetual conflict. That's the way to guarantee that someday you're going to get a big fat lesson, you know, because that isn't the way the universe is designed. The universe is cooperative, fully cooperative. It's a big old cooperative system. And anybody within it who is determined to stay in eternal conflict is going to get conflicted right out of the game at some point. He who cooperates with the most other players is actually the one who's going to win. The one who alienates the most of the rest of everybody is the one who's going to come crashing down in a ball of flame. Hitler. The writing was on the wall on that one from the very beginning. His assumptions going into it were so out of alignment, so completely wrong, and so utterly grounded or springing from your whole negative side. He was all about anger and jealousy and hatred and blame, all of that. He was his whole philosophy was nothing but that. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that his 1,000-year Reich didn't come anywhere near that. He barely lasted 12 years. And the last 2 or 3 were pretty dicey. There was only a couple good years in there as the trains started running on time, and his vision put everybody back to work. And so for a minute there was, everybody was circulating again, and things were happening, but it wasn't sustainable. We've got to find a way to be and do this sustainably. And how do you do that? Well, we've got to acknowledge that we are source energy and we are playing with everybody else. We are playing in the sandbox with everybody else. And so in order to make it to the future, we're going to have to quit snipping the threads of biology. We have to integrate our consciousness into our recognition of our connection to the greater world. Now, Nassim Haramein has a really cool way of describing this. And I said it yesterday, and if you listened yesterday and you're listening today and you're sorry that I'm saying this again, I'm sorry. But it's the integrating yourself. When you integrate yourself at the biological level, you connect with the planet. And when you integrate at the atomic level, you connect with the solar system. And at the level of the Planck, you integrate with the galaxy. And when you get not the Planck. At the proton, you integrate with the galaxy. And when you get all the way down to the Planck, you have integrated with the universe. But the integration that we're talking about has to do with awareness of information, because this divine matrix that we are embedded in, this quantum Planck oscillating field of particle immersion, this paradigm of reality that we live in, has a structure that it's known, and your inner being knows what's real. Your spirit knows about reality. They aren't separate from one another. It's so funny. Human beings kind of went schizophrenic. We went schizophrenic as a whole being when science and religion split. And we need to bring those two back together again. We need to find the place where the energies and the structure and the spirit of the enterprise all come back together in a single structure, where we understand who we really are, so that our physical understanding of who we physically are jives with what our inner beings and our imaginations and our greater soul know to be true about who and what we really are. And then we line our systems up so that our food creation systems are in alignment with source, so that the way that we raise even the animals that we then put on the supply chain, that we then go buy and cook for dinner, are raised kindly and consciously and gratefully in a manner that supports the biofield, supports sustainability, supports and doesn't offend our how we put our systems into alignment is we have a national call for alignment, and then and do it your own way, whether you are MAGA or whether you are a progressive Karen, or whether you are whatever you are. Let's encourage one another to our alignment, and then come back together from a point of alignment. I think we can incrementally move from where we are. There's so many things that we are doing right. Let's encourage one another in our play, in our joy, in our love, in our smiles, in our fun. I think that the things that we do for fun, the things that we do out of our own spontaneous desire to do them, is all of the things that we are doing organized by Source. When our pure desire is the impetus for our action, then we are moving cleanly from Source. That's how we've got to organize, people. Follow your bliss. Find it and follow it. And you will be supporting the rest of the group. You will be doing the best and highest service that you can do for your fellow human beings is find your clear desire. Find the desire itself and follow it. Don't translate it physically. My desire, following my bliss. Well, I like to dance. So that means if I follow my desire to be a dancer, that's following my bliss. But then as you try to do it, every step of the way you're being swatted down and kicked in the ass and shown what a inferior, and like, you know what, I don't want to follow my bliss anymore. I'm just going to go get a job at Circle K. I just need a job. That following your bliss crap doesn't work. Well, then you're not understanding what I'm talking about, because your bliss is either there or not there in every moment. And we're not talking about how your physical brain has translated your bliss. I'm talking about the bliss itself. Find it and follow it. And there's all kinds of fairy tales and mythological stories about, that will-o'-the-wisp, or, what it means to follow that feeling in any given moment. If you are feeling it, you're there. If you're not feeling it, what thought are you under the influence of? Which thought are you under the influence of? You're always under the influence of some thought or other. If you feel good, then it's a thought that is in alignment with what your inner being knows to be true. If it does not feel good, it means that thought is not in alignment. It might be a fearful thought. And there may be a moment on the ground in your physical life where a moment of fear is appropriate. But to think from a starting point of fear is to poison the whole thought process, because your thinking self, you are not fear. Your greater self knows that you have nothing to fear. And so if you're operating from fearful thoughts, you're not operating out of the strength of who you really are. Because who you really are would be operating from interested ideas or, enthusiasm to joyfully do this, that, or the other thing. It has no time, no bandwidth for fear. If you're spending your bandwidth on fear, then you're not using it to be yourself. It's sort of like the reason why I don't think we should chase down the culprits, because that takes away from the bandwidth that we really, really need to move into our pure positive future. And know anyway that anybody who is not behaving correctly, they're just out of alignment. And our acting from our alignment will bring others into alignment. When you go chasing after culprits, you are not in alignment with your inner being, and your lack of alignment, which is chaos, will start creating more of that around you. And so even as you try to move into the future with all the positive ideas, you're anchored in the past as you keep trying to chase down the culprits. We got to stop that. I don't know how to stop that. We've got a wolf by the ears. I'm not saying just in an instant fire all the police departments and then see what happens. Well, what's going to happen is the kinds of things that have been happening in Portland and Seattle and I hear rumors. I don't really focus that direction, but I know that we don't know who we are, and we aren't doing a particularly good job in some ways. Collectively, as our government, we are not doing a good job. And it's unfortunate because our government is our expression of who we are as a group. And our taxes all going into, the government coffers, and then we vote on representatives that then get together and decide how to use that money. Well, increasingly, I'm not happy with how they are spending the money. Are we going to get all the way to $1 trillion a year of military spending, and imagine somehow that is a sustainable path to a sustainable future? We're not building sustainability right now because we don't understand who we are. And so we're still freaking guarded against our neighbors who have guns, and we have guns, and they have guns. And war is natural because we've always done it, right? Just wait, people. The Shiva energy is all around. And it's just waiting for us to pick it up and smash everything that we have built. So how do we stop that? Well, we understand what creates the Shiva energy, how the demonic energy is created, and how it becomes laying around out there in the field for it to rain destruction upon our heads, and how to do this differently, how to create our systems so that they are in alignment with who we really are, and how reality actually unfolds. That thing I did about, the quote I did about integrating at the different levels, and you get all the way down to the Planck, and you've integrated with the universe. It's sort of analogous. That's what you're doing as you go into meditation. You are going down into the rings of understanding, as you lock into alignment with your greater self. Here's your greater self. That's the one on the left. That's you. Your eternal continuum of desire and interest, and it's desire for more life, more love, more beauty, more surprise and delight and abundance and life and spin and beauty. Did I say beauty? More in a way that is both satisfied with where you are and eager for more. Satisfied with where you are and eager for more. That's the frequency you're looking for. How do you find that frequency? How do you tag into that one consciously, holistically, across the whole? How do you do that? How do you live your life that way? How do you know? It just all comes back to who am I? Who am I? So you're a powerful creator. You are a vibrational being. You are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe. And you are an extension of source energy. And as such, you are worthy, and I don't care how big of an asshole you are. I don't care how big of a jerk. I don't care what kind of a criminal you are. I don't care. You are still source energy, and you are good, and you are worthy. And it's very likely that the reason that you are acting so out of alignment is because you probably believe that you are not worthy, and you are desperately and fearfully trying to prove your worthiness. And in your trying to prove your worthiness, you're actually just a bull in a china shop, and you're banging around, you're knocking things over, you feel so small, but you're really so huge. So then as you do the things that you do, you are creating destruction, unbelievable destruction that you do not realize that you are creating. But the whole thing is being caused by you not knowing who you are, not by you being bad in the first place. That's what I want us to understand. We are not bad. The criminals in our prisons are not bad. Now, you could point at the bad things that they've done, but I could point many, 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 many times at the bad things that we have done to them. It's us, and there is no us and them. It's all us. And when you realize that, you're like, oh, oh, oh. What we're trying to do, we're trying to fix, we're trying to get the world to behave from a vantage point very much like and the beatings will continue until morale improves kind of a situation. From that, if you step back a step from that, you will realize very clearly that beatings will never improve morale. And that's kind of what our criminal justice system is. It's kind of what our military protection system, our defense system is all about. This, it's a misaligned way of looking at the world. And we have only done this because we didn't know who we were. And so we need to be kind about it even as we come out of it. We need to be kind to ourselves and recognize the baby everywhere, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Throw the bathwater out, but keep the baby. That's mankind's job. Keep the baby everywhere. Even as we look at our military systems, we can see all the places where we don't want to be destroying each other. I don't care if we do call them an enemy. That's just the wrong way to go about it. But look at all of the wonderful things that we have learned about the physical universe, about engineering. You know, the Army Corps of Engineers, they can go in physically and get almost anything done. How great is that? Having this physical arm of ourselves that can go out and do things. But there's some things we don't want to do. We don't want to bomb our neighbors. Ever. Ever. And as a matter of fact, at some point, we need to disable all bombs. But we're not there yet. Our consciousness has to rise to the point where we all have the natural impulse. Okay, I can feel now it's time to disable those bombs. It's time to put those guns away. But as long as you've got a government that's trying to force them out of your hands or whatever, I can understand why people don't want to give up their guns. I get it. Force isn't allowed, people. It isn't allowed. You have to get them to agree with you. You cannot force them. So, anyway, where are we in this narrative? We're coming up on an hour and a half. I had decided that the show is closer to 2 hours than an hour and a half. At one point, it was an hour and a half show. We're going to go on this for just a little bit longer. I am going to take a break here for the next few days because we're going to fly up to Spokane to see my 98-year-old father who's living in a senior care facility along with his wife. Him and his wife, they're still alive. It's not my mother. He's been married to this woman for let me think about this for a second. 45 years, maybe? Something like that. Anyway, we're going to go up and see them and evaluate their situation and see if there's anything we can do to make them happier or at least even just visit them. They love us. Me and my sister and my husband are all going to go up and say hey to them. So I'll be gone through Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday, and I may have stories to tell. Some real life on the ground kind of stories. Who am I and how does this all work and what am I going to do with my life and how do I know how to make any next step? All of that. I'll be back on Wednesday to fill you in on all of that. I hope you miss me. If you do, I have like 90 some forward facing episodes behind me, get YouTube savvy, go over to my channel and look at all my videos. Maybe I should play with those today and put them all in a playlist. And then you go look at my playlist. And if there's an episode you haven't watched, then watch it. So where does that leave us? Hold on a second. I'm going to take a quick pause, and I'll be back to finish out the last segment of the show. So I'm back. Where are we? Oh, I mean, who are we? No. Where was I? And where do I want to go now with this? Because basically what we're talking about is the broader context that we find ourselves in. Now, each and every one of us has our own specific life, our own little place on the grid, and our own little projects we've got carved out, our relationships on the ground that we need to deal with, that we're working with, our desires, our all of that stuff. Each and every one of us has our own little specific thing going on. But the broader perspective that we are all sitting in, we share a common broader perspective in a way. It's bigger than we think that it is, though. It actually is. There's never any reason to evaluate it with a negative mind either, because there is so much room for whatever you want. That my advice is to focus in on the wanted. Learn to focus more on what you want than on what you've got. Use what you've got to clarify what you want, but then keep in the aperture of your focus, keep what you want, because that's what your inner being is looking at. Your inner being never takes her eyes off of what you want. She's looking at what you want. She knows what you've got. She doesn't have to look at what you've got. She knows what you've got. She's looking at what you want. What are you doing? You might be getting all gobbed up in staring at what you've got. You got no bandwidth left to imagine, to look at what you want. What you want probably doesn't exist yet. That's why you want it. So how do you keep your eyes on something that doesn't exist yet? Well, it's our imagination. Our imagination is downloads, vibrational downloads that you are getting from your inner being. That's what your imagination is. So be more, think about it more sacredly. You know, your imagination is a powerful, cool, wonderful thing. And depending on how clearly it can see most clearly when you are in best alignment. And I mean sustained alignment. Everybody's in alignment at different times all day long. But you may be in the habit of in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So you really don't get a momentum of alignment going. You really want to, the object of the exercise, at least according to my little neck of the woods story, what the direction I'm coming from is saying that the object of the exercise is actually a momentum of alignment. You need to get into a momentum of alignment so that your physical thinking mind can get in on it and be trusted to be thinking in alignment. Well. What else do I want to cover today? I do like to kind of cover the whole the whole gamut, pull it together in a different way every single day. I've got cymatic patterns up here, and I talk about the cymatic patterns, and I use them to show you that yes, we do live in a vibrational universe. And then I have this picture, the neocortex diagram, where I show you your overview mind. And I tell you that that is it's an analogy to these minds. Your physical mind, your specific mind, and your source mind. Your source mind is thinking thoughts. It's pulsing a frequency that you have carved out. Every single time you asked for more, the implicate positive of that negative that your source knew what you were asking for. And the frequency of that implicate positive, she holds that. You now can home in on it as a frequency. You home in on that frequency, and all the ideas will fall into your head, all the impulses will fall into your muscles to lead you right to the physical manifestation of what it was you asked for, or at least the spirit of that you asked for. I'll tell you what you want. You want spirits. What are the spirits you want? You want to feel freedom, safety, abundance, comfort, beauty, honor, justice. You like those spirits. You like the way they feel. Free, to feel safe, to feel happy, joy, interest, eager. That's what you want. You want the feelings. Now you've translated a physical world around you, and you think that you're just stuck with what you've got. You aren't stuck with it nearly as much as you think that you are, especially these days. Now in the olden days, it was kind of one-noted. But we live in a paradigm right now where you could follow your inner being and her impulses, her inspirations, her guidance, her will-o'-the-wisp, follow your bliss kind of guidance. And she could lead you right now with the number of human beings on the planet and the vast what's the word? All the number of things that the choices, the vast choices, the number of choices that you have. The cooperative ventures that are sitting on the table, ready to be ignited, is head spinning. The number of creative ventures and cooperative components and future celebrities and fortunes and magnificent, the fun down the road for us, the surprise and delight right and left, the synchronicities. We're gonna start getting into sync with what our source knows, and we're gonna start taking the steps that our overview is asking us to do, and we're gonna start rendezvousing in a way that it's gonna be so much fun. So I got a story. Jean Houston tells this story, and I'm not sure who it was that she was walking down the street with. Somebody that you'd have heard of, like Margaret Mead. If they're in the same generation, it was Margaret Mead, but it could have been somebody else. Pearl Buck. It was somebody important, and they were getting ready to They had a presentation they were going to do before the United Nations or something like that. She's walking down the street with this person because Jean Houston, you know, she had her day. She has having her day now. Whatever the heck it is she's doing, I'm sure it's fine. But she's a mover and a shaker and has been moving and shaking with people for a long time. So she's walking down the sidewalk with Margaret Mead. I'm just going to call it Margaret Mead. I think that's who it was. Who was giving some sort of presentation. If it wasn't for the United Nations, it was going to be for the Senate. Or she was going to get up in front of some important body and give some important speech. And there was some aspect of it that she still needed to work on, and she only had a couple of days or whatever. So they're walking down the road and they run into the person who wrote the textbook or the book, who was the expert on the very topic that Margaret Mead needed this piece of information from for this heavy-hitting speech that she was giving for this big body. Whatever. Do you see what just happened? That is really powerful, heavy-hitting synchronicity and rendezvousing. High-level quantum rendezvous going on there. When you are powerfully in touch with what your soul desires, the pure, clear frequencies that your soul desires, and you learn to lock onto the frequencies themselves instead of doing it the other way around. We were taught to understand our physical world by locking our consciousness onto the physical world. And then when we didn't like it, well, that just tells us something about the physical world that we need to go out there and change until we get it back into alignment, and then when we look at it, then we like it. Well, we're getting to a point where we realize we can't do that. There's just too many moving parts. I don't have enough power to affect that kind of, and the kind of people who do have the power to affect that kind of physical motion are generally people who are in terrible misalignment. And so the projects that they push through are not in alignment with eternity and with sustainability and with the field around us. So what's the answer? What's the answer? Well, the answer is always the same thing. Get into alignment. Get into alignment with your inner being and do what you are called to. And everybody does not have to be a master of the overview, but everyone needs to be the master of their own alignment. And if your own alignment is telling you that what fascinates you, what you are called to do is be a farmer, to tend the land that you are standing on, or to care for the children that are in your custody, or to design beautiful homes, or to cook magnificent food, or to, design golf courses, or whatever your heart tells you to do, whatever your higher self, and your higher self, you can tell you're with your higher self, because your higher self is a happy self, is a loving self, is a peaceful self, is a kind self, is a connected to all things self, is a brain connected to the heart self, is humanity connected to source self, which is humanity connected to the rest of the biofield. We are not separate from the biofield. We are part of it, and it sustains us. It is our Mother Earth. We cannot survive without her sustained, continuing. I think that us getting off of fossil fuels is going to go miles and miles and miles towards general sustainability. And we will learn in time how to clean up the pockets of grubby that we have created upon the planet. Us having a clean, free source of energy to help us in our endeavors is absolutely going to be key and vital. And then everybody understanding their own configuration so that they are not crosswise to their own desires, not crosswise to their own energy stream, and not crosswise to their own understanding that we live in a win-win paradigm. And your inner being is standing at a point of win, 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 win. Because she's standing in a place where we all are. She's standing in universal consciousness, which, by the way, we all have access to. So if you are a wannabe cult leader and you wander into universal consciousness and you feel really, 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 really special as you see all these great truths that hit you in this way, know that you are special. But you are not the only one there. We are all there, Mr. Wannabe Cult Leader. We are all there and we are all special. So get in there and find your special. Learn how to drive your HBV. Learn how to drive your equipment. Know that you are a twin carburetor system that needs to be in alignment. Actually, you have a major carburetor and a minor carburetor. Your major is obviously your source. It's who you really are because it's who you always are. You are always source, even as you are your physical self. When your physical self dies, well, you're not your physical self anymore, but you are still your source self. It is your continuum. It's your energy stream connected to all things continuum that is you. And it is love, it is light, it is who you really are. Only the love is real. Learn to focus as you look around the world. Put the love in the center of the aperture of your focus, and know that you can see the evil. You can. It's in your peripheral vision. You can see it. Don't be naive. We do go all the way to Holocaust, and it really, really is bad. So when somebody tells you something really, 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 really awful that has happened, don't let that throw you off your game. Don't let it surprise you. We really can be awful. But the awful is an expression of us not being in alignment with our true nature, with our connection to the Almighty and all things. That's all our wickedness is, and it can be cured not by punishment and not by guilt and shame and blame and chasing the culprits down and bringing them to justice. That's not how we truly find our way forward. What that has been doing is been contributing to the information of the story so that we can chase down, oh, that's what happened, that's what happened, that's what happened, so that we can better get to the point where we understand who we are. That's the whole object of the exercise right now, is to understand who we are. Once we understand who we are, then the object of the exercise becomes using the characteristics and nature and configuration of who we are and the matrix that we are embedded in to accomplish whatever projects our singing heart desires. That's the idea. And right now, we're still in this clumsy area, both, where we're just trying to figure out how we are dreaming this into place. Who am I? How do I get my bigger self and my smaller self into alignment and live my dreams come true, my happily ever after? How do I do that? Well, each and every one of us is working on it. And I will continue to work on it. I'm going on a field trip. I'm going out into the field, into the quantum field, and I'm going to do some field exercises as I interact with my family, my father, my sister, continuing with my husband, also navigating the transportation system that we got going on right now, as well as heading up into the Pacific Northwest, although we are inland, Spokane, not Seattle. They're kind of having a drought. I do not like drought, and I hate forested areas under drought. It really bothers me. So, in any case, it is what it is. Life is what it is, and we are here to live it, and we are here to get into alignment with our greater self and our broader perspective and go do our very best. Let the Spirit move you to the impulses that are appropriate in any given moment. I'm feeling the urge to sign off. I'm trying to decide whether or not I've had enough. I would only do an extra 10 more minutes if I felt really an impulse. I did not talk about us being genetically modified today. I do believe that we are. I did mention it, but I didn't really get into it. I don't think I showed the slides, the article from the PNAS.org, the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and their conclusion about what they think about human chromosome number 2. It's a fused chromosome, and they think it's 2 ape chromosomes fused together. And now they aren't ape chromosomes anymore, it's a human chromosome. And it also gives rise to this neocortex, which is your overview mind. I think somebody gave us a little bump. They thought, what could the harm be? Actually, I don't know why they did it. They might have done it because somebody did it to them. And then they developed, genetic modification capabilities, and it's a tradition now because they would think of us as like their children. But are we their outlaw children because we're not supposed to be doing that? I don't know. There's a story out there that's really very dramatic and terribly intriguing. And people could get onto a train of that and start spinning out science fiction. It'd be really cool. Anyway, it all goes to the question, doesn't it? Who am I? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? And how does mankind find her way? Isn't that funny? I used both male and female there. To sustainability. That's the Holy Grail. Sustainability. We are not at sustainability right now, I promise you. And our infrastructure that we think is so high tech is actually backwards. We don't need the wires. We don't need the roads. We need to leap past these. Because when we get to the place where we don't have to grind our environment into such a specific human shape, then we can abide on this planet with a much softer footprint. Anyway, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the potential projects that could be conceived of for our future. I am ready to build that smarter world, IBM. It's time to do it. Anyway, I think I've given us a lot to think about for one day. It's kind of all the same things, but I try to put it together differently. Until I see you again, go out there and be your authentic self. The world needs your brilliance, needs your genius. Each and every one of us is a genius in their own right, in charge of your very own universe. That you're the only one in, by the way. However, your universe is embedded in millions and millions of your universe is a co-universe with everybody else. I guess we'll talk about that on another day. So until we meet again, it'll be next Wednesday. And then I'm going to take another couple of days off because it's my birthday. And we're going to go to Ojo Caliente and take in the waters. That's going to be so much fun. In any case, until next week, I love you so much. I wish you well. I wish you alignment. I bid you peace. And most of all, may the Source be with you, for it cannot do otherwise.